I would say that AI will transform and even automate many jobs, but that's going to lead to the creation of new jobs that only humans can do.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
Welcome back for another episode here on the Teacher Edition podcast. We're going to continue our CyberSense series as we talk very simply about generative AI. If you didn't catch episode 1, AI 101, be sure to go back and listen, as that really lays the groundwork for what we're going to be talking about today. As we get started, just a reminder to go check out our website, teachereditionpodcast.com, to learn more about the show, sign up for our newsletter, and also submit your questions for upcoming episodes. You can also find us on social media. We're Teacher Edition Pod on Instagram and TikTok, as well as Teacher Edition Podcast on Facebook. We're also on YouTube as Teacher Edition Podcast, where you can watch these episodes if you would like. So as I mentioned in our last episode, we're going to mix things up for the next few episodes. We're going to take a little detour from our normal interview style format, and we're just going to talk about AI. It's a huge topic, definitely not one that can be covered in just a few short episodes. But my heart is just to give you some basics, to give you a better understanding of what it is and how it can really be a tool for you. In the first episode, we talked about how generative AI really caught educators in general off guard. For the most part, their first introduction to it was the students abusing it or misusing it. And from there, educators have really found themselves on the defensive with generative AI. But AI is not going away. It's growing, it's improving every single day. And it's vital that we have at least a basic bit of information, of knowledge as to what it is, so that we can best lead and guide our students to use that tool appropriately, but also so that perhaps we can take advantage of ways it could help us as educators. So in episode 1, we talked about some terms, we talked about how AI works, but as you know, we often hear about AI on a daily basis, and those definitions, that process we talked about, that's not what's being talked about. Think about some things that you have heard about AI. Everyone's talking about it, what it does, what it might do, what it collects, and on and on. So what have you heard? Well, with that in mind, let's start out this episode talking about some myths and some misconceptions of AI, and there are many. So first, maybe you have heard that AI equals robots. Often, like if you were to go look up an image, like maybe you wanted an image that depicts AI, you're going to see a robot. If someone's talking in a workshop or something about AI, there's a picture of a robot. But that is not true. AI does not necessarily equal robots. Instead, the correction to that is AI is software-based and it powers systems. So AI is like the behind-the-scenes workings. It's the gears that are really powering those systems. And of course, those systems could be robots. If you've ever gone on any tours where there's robots, we have a BMW plant here nearby, gone on an amazing tour there where they are using AI to power things such as robots. So, little correction there. The next myth or misconception is that more data equals smarter AI. More data means smarter AI. Well, not necessarily. Quality and relevance are key, but it's not just quantity. It's about the quality. If you have poor data, but you have lots of it, that doesn't mean you're going to have great results. Poor data is poor results. So again, it's not in the quantity. It's not, well, this one was trained on this many billion pieces of data. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. And we want accurate and unbiased data. The next one, the next myth or misconception, AI can teach itself anything. The itself, well, that's not completely true. It must have human guidance. So to correct that, AI requires large amounts of data. We've talked about that. Tuning, we talked about that, and structure. The learning is guided. And yes, there's different levels of guidance, and in some of them, the guidance is quite small. But again, it's seeing the patterns, it's taking that feedback, and it's determining from those patterns what to do in the future. Okay, this one was accepted. I want to keep that and repeat it. This one was rejected. I want to regroup and try that again. It's remembering those patterns. And again, I'm speaking very simplistically. I just want to give you a really basic understanding, but that is how it's learning. So it's not training itself. There is that guidance that is involved there as well. The next one, AI understands and thinks like humans do. Well, yeah, this is kind of right along those same lines of what we just talked about. Actually, AI recognizes patterns, you're hearing this over and over, patterns in data and generates the responses statistically without consciousness and without comprehension. And that's where many people, especially when AI first came out, maybe you saw those news stories where there was the fear there was a person on the other end and things like that. Well, that's because that human-like response really does feel like that sometimes, but there's not that consciousness. There's not that comprehension. Again, it's seeing those patterns and giving that feedback. It's not understanding. It's just repeating and regrouping those patterns. What's another myth or misconception? Maybe you've heard that AI is a machine and machines are neutral. Well, actually, as we mentioned in the first episode when we talked about bias, AI inherits biases from its training data. So yes, the machine itself does not make a moral decision, like to lie to you or to be biased because of you. I actually was talking to somebody and they said, no, I'm not going to ask AI because when it sees me, it lies to me. Well, one, I don't think it sees you. So I'm guessing she was meaning like when I log in, it just doesn't tell me truthful things. Well, it's not making that moral decision to try to lie to you. But it has been trained on data, it has been trained on algorithms, and if there's any bias or inaccuracy in those, that's what you're going to also see in those results. So once again, go back to the bias is from the training in either the data or the process. The next one, AI will leave humans unemployed. Have you heard this? There's much panic, especially in certain realms about this. Will we not have jobs? What will we do? Will certain, whole sectors of the job scene just disappear? Well, I would say that AI will transform and even automate many jobs, but that's going to lead to the creation of new jobs that only humans can do. So I do think there will be changes in jobs. I read an article about examining your job and adjusting so that you can be a valuable human. And there are many jobs that exist right now that will be automated. And so it's basically encouraging those people to look at your job and see if this is something that AI could do, perhaps you need to better yourself or look at a career change so that you do have a job that is not necessarily going to be handed over to AI. Many do the job, but the human has to do some parts of jobs. So to say that all of these are, all humans are going to be left unemployed or a good majority of them, I think all is a pretty strong word. Well, yes, some will change, but that's going to free you up to do other things, to move on to things that only humans can do. So I think we just need to find a balance there. And there is a lot of panic. I've read a number of articles. I've watched different short videos or documentaries about that where they're talking about, how things are just going to be wiped out. And again, I think we need to find a balance there. But at the same point, be mindful to make sure what we're doing is something that is going to be sustainable as so many things are automated. The next myth or misconception, AI has no place in my world and it never will. And I have heard this from people. I have heard them say, you know what, we're not going to have AI in our school. We are going to shut down all those sites. We will block them. It's not going to have any part. I've heard teachers say, I will have nothing to do with AI. In my life, it's not going to be a part of it. Well, I hate to tell them, but as much as we think we can opt out of it, we cannot. AI is here. And it is unavoidable. And you know what? It is going to continue to influence our lives more and more and more, regardless of what our response is. So we can choose to ignore it, but that's not going to send it away. And by the way, the same was said about some other things that we use in our lives these days. I thought you might find this very interesting. I was reading about some previous technology advances and previous I guess, things that people have come up with, ideas that they have come up with, and how they were immediately rejected. And now, guess what? They are still here. How about this? The horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty, a fad. That was said by the president of Michigan Savings Bank, advising Henry Ford's lawyer not to invest in Ford Motor Company. How interesting. How about this one? I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers, said Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM in 1943. How about this one from Time magazine in 1966? Remote shopping, while entirely feasible, will flop. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's kind of a daily occurrence for most of us, right? And we might not call it remote shopping, but we have that online or that e-commerce idea there. Okay, how about this one? Television won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after the first 6 months. People will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night. Said by a film producer and head of 20th Century Fox in 1946. We know where that's gone. If you've walked into Best Buy or Walmart, or there's whole sections of TV. It appears they have stuck around. What about this one? The internet will catastrophically collapse in 1996. Now, that's kind of an interesting statement there. It was said in 1995 by the inventor of the Ethernet. And from what I understand, he actually, in 1996, ate his words literally, like wrote them on a piece of paper, ripped them up, and ate them, because obviously that was proven to be wrong. What about one more here? From a mobile phone pioneer in 1981. Cellular phones will absolutely not replace local wire systems. And now, how many local wire systems do we actually have? So, in the past, in spite of some people's best efforts to ignore what was happening, to walk away from it, to say it will never happen, it's never going to go there, it did, and here we are. And you know what? AI is here, and now we have a choice. As personally, we have a choice, but also as educators. Are we going to ignore it? And with that ignoring, we're going to lose the benefit to ourselves, but also the opportunity to speak into it in the lives of our students. Again, we're teaching a generation now that doesn't know what it was like to not have technology with them at all times. They have always had a phone with them. And now AI, they're not going to know anything different. Is anyone teaching them how to use these tools from a biblical worldview? Is anyone speaking into that? And if you say, well, I don't have time for that. I have to get through all my lessons. I have so many things to cover. My class times are short enough as it is. And we think, in error, that if we don't take the time for it, it's okay. It means it's kind of neutral. No, someone is going to speak into the lives of these students or into your own children. And if you're not speaking into it, who is? And generative AI is powerful. AI is powerful, as an umbrella name, but then generative AI more specifically. And we get the opportunity. God has placed us right here, right now, to speak into the lives of these students. And we have that great opportunity. But again, how are we to do that if we don't know much about it? So our first task is to become knowledgeable. We need to be wise to what it is. Even we don't have to be an expert, but what is it? So that we can be wise to the misuse of it. And also so we can champion the benefits of it. So if generative AI is here to stay, what do we do? What now? We're going to talk about this in the coming episodes. But as we wrap up this episode, I want to challenge your thinking. I want to challenge your mindset. So we've talked about myths. We talked about misconceptions. And I want to end this episode talking about your mindset about AI. Some of you do spend your days fighting AI. And honestly, it is hard to think positively about it. I get it. Some of you just don't even know what it is for one reason or another, and that's fine. But not knowing about it can be intimidating. You're trying to figure out why it's really needed and how this impacts you and how this is impacting your classroom. So we're going to start to get down into the weeds on this. We're going to talk about some of those popular tools. We're going to talk about some cautions. We're going to talk about practical applications for you and your classroom. But as we do that, let me challenge you to focus your approach on generative AI. Here are 4 general ways where you may need to adjust your mindset as you learn more and as you approach AI. First of all, AI produces information, but it isn't just for reading. Think about that. AI produces information, but it's not just for reading. So most of us are Google search trained, right? That's our era. But this isn't just pulling a list of curated, items to review of websites or whatever it may be. It is actually creating content for you. That is a mindset change. It's a shift because in Google, we just received a list to kind of sift through. This can create for you, okay? That's a little bit of a change. 2, focus on using AI for interactivity and productivity, okay? This is another mindset shift. This isn't just a cheating tool or an answer machine, as I've heard it called. This is a tool that can actually help you. You can interact with it. It can help you streamline and enhance so many different areas of your life, even as an educator. 3, I want you to see AI as a partner, not a solution. AI is an assistant. It's not a final product. And unfortunately, in education, we work with a group of individuals who see AI as the end product. It's where they get their answer. They copy and paste. It writes it for them. And so that's kind of the mindset we've fallen into a little bit, but that's not what it is. It is a tool. It's number 4, a starting point. It's not the end point. Unfortunately, AI just worked quietly in the background of our lives until it just burst into our classroom as a cheating tool. But again, that isn't how it's meant to be used. That is abuse of a really great tool. So when used appropriately, AI has the potential to be a personal assistant for teachers and a personal tutor for our students. For teachers, I have heard it described like an intern, a super energized, ready to help you do anything tool. You just have to choose where it can be most helpful and use it that way. For students, it's a powerful tool to help them in their learning. Appropriate tools and appropriate use are the keys. And those are 2 topics that we're going to cover in our upcoming episodes. Thank you for joining us for today's episode, and I really do hope that you'll join us for the remaining episodes of this CyberSense mini-series. As we sign off for today, just a reminder to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to learn more about the show and to submit your questions for upcoming episodes. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media. Once again, it's time to get back to your day. But it's not just any day. Every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and through His grace working in you. Go do what God has called you to do.